After last week, we continued playing gaps this week. INHD was the big boy, which told us that gap plays would still be hot this week. It started running Monday and gapped up almost immediately. That's why it got our interest. When it got halted, we took a look at its daily chart. We can see it has a gap, which it almost filled but not quite yet. After its halt, it entered the gap and even broke it. Because after it halted, it opened above the gap, and a stock has broken the gap when a candle opens above the gap zone. But after it broke it, it went immediately down, back to the gap zone. Here it consolidated nicely for a couple of minutes. This confirmed the strength of the gap. Now we just wait for it to break the gap again, to enter. So, when it broke the gap with a really strong candle, we entered. It consolidated on top of the gap for a couple of minutes before it went off like a rocket. It just kept going and going the whole day, and even hit a high of $66.65. This meant it gave us more than 2,500% from our entry level, and the week just started. The other one that ran on the same day was SUNE. This one started with a 100% candle with big volume. This already showed us how violent this one can be. When we added its daily chart, we saw it went straight through a gap. So we would like to see if this gap is strong. If it comes back before making its next move, can it use this gap as support? That would be a nice entry level. A few minutes later, it did exactly that. It came back to the gap zone and bounced exactly from the zone. So we entered. We put our stop loss right below the gap, which meant we risked almost 15%, which isn't much compared to the 100% move it made in 1 minute. It went up nice and steady and gave us at the end an almost 100% move. After this move, it came back down a bit and consolidated for most of the day. When volume and big green candles came in, it got our attention again. We grabbed its daily chart to look for a possible entry area. When we zoom out on its daily chart, we can see it has another gap from $6.60 to $5.56. When it rejected for the first time at this gap, we knew this would be our entry level. We just needed to wait for the break of $6.60. When it entered the gap, it rejected the top of the gap first, before it broke it. Once it broke the gap, we got in. We knew we couldn't expect another 100% because it already ran so much. And it came real close to a rejection level on the daily. But it still gave us a nice 30% move, exactly to that resistance level. The next one was ELPW. This one started running Tuesday. It started rejecting from the same place it rejected from the Friday before. When we add its daily chart, we can see that the rejection place is a gap zone. It has a gap from $1.59 to $1.09. And it even has a second gap from $2.76 to $2.65. Thus, because it rejected already Friday and again Tuesday, we knew this was a strong gap zone. So we would want to enter at a possible breakout. When it broke the gap we entered, it immediately went back down to in the gap zone, but it held it and went back up and gave us a 70% move to the next gap zone, a perfect place to sell. And we already knew it before it came there. Do you see why gaps are the shit? ELPW came back down after and could have given you multiple nice moves from the gap zone, but we already moved on to the next one, so we missed these nice moves. That next one was PAVS. But before we move to PAVs, we first want to take a look at the last one of the week, SKYQ. We played this one before on the channel, so we know this one can move nicely. You couldn't guess it, but this one also has a gap on the daily, from $2.16 to $2.11. A small gap, but it still really is a gap. When it rejected from this gap Wednesday, we knew to keep our eyes on her. This rejection confirmed the strength of the gap. In after hours, it broke the gap, so we got in. It gave us a nice 50% move, which is not bad for us because we don't really like playing after hours. Well, let's come back to PAVs now. We wanted to end with this one because this one is a bit different than the rest of them. This one didn't have a nice gap on the daily, but it still did have a nice gap. This one also started running Monday. It made almost a 200% move before coming back all the way down. During this day, PAVs halted up and down multiple times, one of which created a really interesting gap. This one, from $1.51 to $1.57. Why is this one so interesting? Well, when it came back down for the first time, it bounced from this gap zone perfectly to make a 60% move. And even after it lost the zone with a halt down, it immediately broke it again and used it as support after. Then when it really lost the zone, so not with a halt or something, it died. So all these different moments showed us that this gap zone is really strong. The next day in pre-market, it did get big volume again and made this time even a 500% move. This one is extremely volatile. It can make big moves, but both ways. So we have to be careful. When it came back all the way down to the gap zone. When it exactly bounced from this level at market open, we got in and set our stop loss underneath the gap zone. It bounced really strong and made its biggest move yet. It gave us a more than 1,000% move. Hours after this explosive move, you could still see how strong this gap zone is. It used it as support, and when it lost it, it used it as resistance several times, even the next day. Do you see how even though we didn't use a daily gap, we still found an interesting gap to play on the 1-minute chart? Gaps can really make you a millionaire. I hope we showed you how you can use gaps to your own advantage. I hope you learned something, and I hope this video helped you in any way further in your trading career. Keep your eyes open. The market is really volatile. Use this knowledge and make some money. See you hopefully next time. Bye.